Miss, what really happened behind the walls of Buckingham Palace on February 3, 2026? Why did a seemingly innocuous two-paragraph announcement trigger an earthquake that reached the very heart of the monarchy? And why did some members of the royal family suddenly feel strategically blindsided? That morning, the palace released a matter-of-fact statement. No pomp, no ceremony, no official photograph. Yet its contents were explosive. Prince William had been named the sole beneficiary of one of the monarchy's most secret and historically significant private estates. Not Sandringham, not Balmoral, not Windsor. It was something older, something hidden, something Queen Elizabeth had shielded for decades. Within hours, it became clear that this was no ordinary inheritance. It was a strategic move, a final, meticulously planned step by a monarch who had been thinking several moves ahead until the very last moment. Observers spoke of a legal checkmate, one that had been prepared not in public, but in secret. The story doesn't begin in 2026, however, but in 1944. As Europe descended into war, King George VI purchased a secluded estate deep in the Chiltern Hills, between Oxford and Buckinghamshire. Its name, Cedar Estate. From the outset, it was a property that was not meant to exist. No official registration, no public announcement, no dedication. A shadow estate known only to a small circle of confidants. Why did the royal family keep such a property secret for over 80 years? The answer lies in its contents. Internal briefings, released to select royal correspondents on February 3, 2026, described an area that resembled a historical vault less than a country estate. A private chapel with a memorial crypt for royal family members serving in the war. 186 oak chests containing personal wartime correspondence. 2,077 previously unpublished portraits, including works by King George VI and Princess Margaret, and then, perhaps the most sensitive pieces, 14 sealed audio recordings of Queen Elizabeth in private conversations with Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, Ronald Reagan, and Charles de Gaulle. For historians, this would be a treasure of inestimable value. For the monarchy itself, however, it was more than history. It was identity. Another particularly explosive detail came to light. Between 2017 and 2021, Prince William regularly visited the Cedar Estate. No press, no cameras, no official engagements. He didn't come and go as heir to the throne, but as a custodian. He studied old war letters, catalogued documents, and oversaw humidity checks in the archives. Queen Elizabeth II had taken note of this. In a handwritten note in the so-called Covenant Trust, she is said to have recorded that he would inherit not only the crown, but also the silence that she had protected. In retrospect, these words seem like a deliberate course of action. The legal mechanism behind it was as extraordinary as the estate itself. The Cedar Estate belonged neither to the Crown Estate nor to the Duch of Cornwall. It was established under a private covenant trust, chartered under number 0142, and subject to a delayed activation clause. This clause only came into effect after two conditions were met: the conclusion of the state funeral ceremonies for Queen Elizabeth II and the public recognition of Prince William as the bearer of institutional responsibility. Both conditions had now been fulfilled. The transfer was irreversible. But while many in the public interpreted this step as a sign of trust and continuity, others reacted with considerably more reservation. Camilla and Tom Parker Bowes, in particular, were reportedly surprised, according to the palace, not only by the timing but also by the scope of the decision. This marked the beginning of a development that quickly escalated from a matter of inheritance to a power struggle within the family. Was this merely about land and buildings, or about the strategic safeguarding of the monarchy's moral and institutional future? At the end of this first chapter, a central thesis emerges. Queen Elizabeth left behind not just property, but a system of legal safeguards that deliberately placed one name at its center: Prince William. Was this pure grandmotherly love or a conscious response to growing tensions within the family? And what does it mean for the future roles of Camilla, Tom Parker Bowes, and even King Charles? The official explanation was brief. Its consequences, however, are not. While the public was still trying to grasp what the Cedar estate truly meant, new battle lines were beginning to form behind closed doors. Was this decision really just a matter of trust, or a clear message to those who had developed different visions for the royal lands in recent years? Camilla and Tom Parker Bowes, in particular, are said to have only fully grasped the implications of the Covenant Trust when legal details began to leak out. For it wasn't just about the Cedar estate. It was about a pattern, a strategic network of property transfers that Queen Elizabeth had apparently systematically prepared. As early as the end of the 19th century, Camilla had internally promoted a project discussed under the name Windsor Cultural Legacy Center. Officially, it was to be a cultural heritage center with literary salons, culinary retreats, and historical tours of the estate. At a time when monarchies worldwide were increasingly under pressure to justify their status, this initially sounded like modernization. But according to internal memos, there was more to it. Tom Parker Bowles, known for his gastronomic ventures, was said to have recognized the potential in a controlled opening of such estates. The vision included a Michelin-starred restaurant in the old hunting lodge, an exclusive product line under the name Royal Wild, and select events for affluent international guests. A project that would blend tradition with luxury, but also generate revenue. In October 2025, according to internal sources, a decisive moment arrived. Tom's legal team examined the possibility of having parts of the Cedar estate designated as public cultural heritage, citing its historical significance from wartime. Such a reclassification would have weakened exclusive control and potentially allowed for a form of shared administration. Was this strategic thinking or a transgression? For Prince William, it apparently meant the latter. 3 weeks after a private reception near Henley-on-Thames, to which Camilla had invited investors, critics, and historians, Prince William fully activated the Covenant Trust. The timing seemed calculated. The legal structure left no room for maneuver. Cedar Estate was now legally unassailable, but that wasn't the end of the story. On January 31, 2026, the Land Registry discreetly updated the entries for North Acer Hall, a 1,200-acre estate between WER and Berkshire, historically used for hunting weekends and diplomatic meetings during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Particularly explosive were documents dated September 8, 2022, just weeks before the Queen's death, which revealed that she had reclassified North Acer Hall from a shared Crown asset to a personal sovereign possession. This legal loophole allowed for a private inheritance through her will, outside of institutional succession. In Appendix R3, she stipulated that North Acer should remain with the child who would bear the burden of the future, a phrase many interpreted as a clear reference to Prince William. The decision bypassed not only Camilla but also King Charles and Princess Anne. For insiders, this was a historic moment. A personal redistribution of this magnitude hadn't occurred since Queen Victoria. But Camilla hadn't been idle. As early as 2023, she and Tom Parker Bowes reportedly attempted to discreetly integrate North Acer Hall into a culinary heritage project, supported by investors from the United Arab Emirates and a Parisian investment company. The plan included a 5-star boutique hotel, a cooking school, and a complete repositioning as a luxury destination. Internal economic assessments estimated the licensing rights alone at over £48 million within a decade, a lucrative model. But reality unfolded differently. The legal transfer had already been prepared. The corresponding codicils had been sealed, notarized, and archived. When the details became public, Palace staff described Camilla's reaction not as mere disappointment, but as deep strategic frustration. This was followed by a communications campaign in late autumn 2025. Anonymous opinion pieces questioned whether the monarchy was investing too heavily in historic properties, and whether a generational redistribution was necessary. Behind the scenes, Maurice Lullo, an experienced PR consultant, was said to have been involved in this strategy. But the legal architecture proved impenetrable. With each new document, it became clearer. Queen Elizabeth had not only distributed property, she had erected protective barriers. Every potential reclassification, every commercial opening, every shared management had been anticipated and contractually blocked. The crucial question arises: Why did she consider this safeguard necessary? Was it solely about tradition, or a deliberate distancing from new economic models within the family? For Prince William, North Acer Hall meant more than just land. It was another piece in a strategy that made him not just an heir, but the sole steward of a moral line. And while Camilla and Tom Parker Bowes had to reassess their options, a larger question arose. Was this a matter of familial rivalry or a fundamental conflict between commercialization and preservation? The decisions have been made. But what will they mean in the long run for King Charles, Princess and the public's perception of the monarchy? Is this the foundation for a stable future, or the beginning of a silent power struggle that has yet to reach its conclusion? As the debate surrounding Cedar Estate and North Acer Hall intensified, another property came into focus, one that would reveal the emotional dimension of the entire dispute. Clarence Hill Estate was no ordinary country house. It was a retreat hidden deep within the Chiltern Hills, accessible only via a discreet driveway. A place that, according to internal documents, had existed since 1947, acquired by King George VI as a kind of reserve for direct heirs. But what distinguished Clarence Hill from the other estates was not its size or market value. It was the language with which Queen Elizabeth defined its future. In January, Princess Anne conducted a review of private correspondence in Windsor's Oak Room. She came across a triple-folded document secured in a leather folio marked W. William George. Its contents were a codicil explicitly granting the Clarence Hill estate to Prince William, free from encumbrances, free from shadows outside the Crown estate, and immune from political and commercial influence. The wording was remarkably clear. Clarence Hill was not to be regarded as a commodity, but as a moral line of succession. This legal construct made it clear that this estate was not intended as an investment, but as a symbol of continuity and ethical stability. Observers saw this as an indirect response to turbulent years. The public controversies surrounding Prince Andrew and Prince Harry's media-savvy projects had damaged the monarchy's reputation. In this context, Clarence Hill acted as a shield, a space in which the institution could re-establish its values. When Camilla learned of the transfer, palace sources reportedly said she immediately assembled her legal team. Tom Parker Bowes was also involved. At the time, he was reportedly dealing with a setback in a publishing contract, which had been marred by irregularities in the use of royal crest in one of his projects. For him, Clarence Hill was less a sacred place than a missed opportunity. Internal emails, which later allegedly leaked, outlined a vision under the name Hill and Crown Limited. The plan was for a boutique hospitality brand focused on regenerative agriculture, sustainability, and exclusive events. The strategy aimed to position Clarence Hill as a symbol of Green Britain, with Tom Parker Bowes as the face of a new, modern aristocratic identity. But the plan came too late. The codicil had already been notarized and secured in the royal archives. The transfer to the Duchy of Cornwall Trust was complete. Legally, there was no room for maneuver. Hill and Crown Limited was registered. But before any operational steps could be taken, an anonymous tip reached the Lord Chancellor's office. The business plan was publicly discussed, including rebranding strategies and visualizations featuring company logos on historic facades. The reaction was immediate. Critics questioned whether such commercialization was compatible with the dignity of Queen Elizabeth's legacy. Prince William did not respond publicly with attacks or statements. Instead, he strengthened legal safeguards. Within 48 hours, Hill and Crown Limited was dissolved. Tom Parker Bowes temporarily withdrew from several public engagements. King Charles officially remained silent, but according to sources close to him, he made it clear that this was an attack on the integrity of Queen Elizabeth II's will. Princess Anne played a quiet but crucial role. Her level-headed assessment of the situation is said to have significantly influenced the course of action. For many observers, a central motive emerged here. Queen Elizabeth II had not only distributed assets but had also deliberately neutralized potential points of conflict. She had included clauses that prohibited commercial repurposing without Prince William's explicit consent. She had planned ahead years in advance. The Clarence Hill affair thus revealed a deeper conflict. Should the monarchy develop new economic models in a modern world to secure its relevance? Or does its strength lie precisely in its conscious separation from the market? Clarence Hill became the symbol of this fundamental question. At the end of this section, one clear observation remains. Prince William did not act as an aggressive power politician, but as a legally protected administrator. Camilla and Tom Parker Bowes, on the other hand, had to recognize that any initiative against Queen Elizabeth's written wishes would be futile. But was this already the end of the conflict, or merely an interim stage in a power structure that continues to reshape itself? Subsequent developments would show that Clarence Hill was not the final battleground. Was Clarence Hill just a warning signal, or the order for an even greater escalation? While many observers wondered whether the internal family tensions would now subside, the next chapter was already taking shape behind the scenes. And this was meant to illustrate just how entrenched the opposing sides had become. At the heart of it all was Green Downs, a 400-hectare estate with centuries-old trees, a Tudor hunting lodge dating back to 1578, and a private chapel containing relics from the 17th century. For Queen Elizabeth, Green Downs had been more than just a retreat for decades. It was a moral reference point, a place where decisions, maturations, and conflicts were processed in silence. Its transfer to Prince William was therefore not merely a matter of wealth, but a symbolic act. With Green Downs, he inherited not just land, but a narrative of restraint and duty. Yet it was precisely this symbolism that made the estate so covetable. Internal financial documents later discussed valued Green Downs at around £80 million. Camilla and Tom Parker Bowes are said to have seen enormous potential in it. Their concepts included ambitious, exclusive eco-lodges for £5,000 a night. The estate hosted curated farm-to-table dinners led by Tom Parker Bowes, a circle of international elites from the United Arab Emirates and East Asia. This luxury model emphasized sustainability and exclusivity, but also the commercial exploitation of the historic setting. Sir Piers Mallory, a legal advisor to Camilla, reportedly began examining the will for potential loopholes. Every clause that could allow for shared use or heritage-based cooperation was analyzed. Simultaneously, Tom Parker Bowes registered a holding company in Luxembourg called Stack Crown Hospitality Limited, 3 weeks before the full will was made public. The plans were extensive, converting the chapel into a retreat center, repurposing former stables as a wellness and wine-growing project, and completely repositioning the estate as a luxury brand. However, Queen Elizabeth II's strategic foresight was once again evident. A code clause, notarized as early as 2021, explicitly prohibited any material alteration or commercial repurposing of Green Downs without the explicit consent of Prince William. This clause was precisely worded. It blocked not only direct sales but also indirect brand licensing. When this provision was read to the senior royals in the Green Drawing Room, there was reportedly absolute silence. For Camilla, this meant another legal dead end. Observers described her reaction as coolly controlled but strategically isolated. Prince William chose a different path. On February 5, he appeared unannounced at Green Downs, accompanied by Princess Catherine, George, and Charlotte. No press conference, no harsh words, just pictures of a family walking through an estate that was now officially under their control. This visual message was more powerful than any statement. But no sooner was Green Downs secured than another area came into the spotlight: Greenheath Estate. A 500-hectare, largely undeveloped woodland near Forest Lodge, historically protected by a royal deed. Its estimated value of £37 million, accompanied by a separate private trust that had been discreetly built up over decades. Here, the situation escalated particularly sharply. Camilla initially considered Greenheath an insignificant hunting ground. However, internal financial documents revealed that Queen Elizabeth I had endowed the estate with a substantial capital buffer, earmarked for environmental education programs, children's rehabilitation initiatives, and sustainable projects under the direct patronage of Prince William and Princess Catherine. Tom Parker Bowes apparently had other ideas. A culinary wellness center with international funding was envisioned, including collaborations with investors from Dubai and a French savings group. Exclusive banquets were already being planned. But on January 30, 2026, Princess Anne, on behalf of the Crown Trust Authority, finalized the transfer of assets, retroactively dated December 28, 2025. The Greenheath Royal Future Trust was established, permanently prohibiting any commercial use. When details of this structure became public, intense discussions ensued within the inner circle. Camilla is even said to have considered challenging Queen Elizabeth's mental capacity at the time of the signing, a move that would have been highly risky, both politically and morally. King Charles reacted decisively. Any questioning of the will would be considered an attack on the Queen's legacy. A red line had been drawn. On the morning of February 3, 2026, Prince William appeared alone at the gates of Greenheath. Without cameras, without a large entourage, he signed the charter establishing the trust. With this signature, the estate was definitively removed from commercial use. For observers, it was clear that this was not just a legal victory. It was a symbolic act of consolidation. Greenheath Estate had demonstrated one thing. Queen Elizabeth II's strategy was not piecemeal, but systematic. Every possible loophole had been considered, every conceivable commercialization anticipated. But while these stages seemed complete, one crucial question remained. Was this the entire inheritance, or was there one final, decisive move still to come? The answer lay at Oakridge Estate. Was Oakridge Estate just another property, or the final proof that Queen Elizabeth had planned her succession down to the last detail? When, on the morning of February 3, 2026, a sealed leather envelope bearing the royal seal was officially handed to Prime Minister Harriet Shawcross, it became clear that the final chapter of this legacy had been reached. Oakridge Estate was no ordinary country estate. Unlike Balmoral or Sandringham, it was not subject to the classic Crown Estate regularian. It was private property, secured by a unique clause in the will of Queen Elizabeth II. Nestled on the edge of the Thameswood forests, with the ruins of a Tudor chapel and extensive pastureland, the estate had an estimated value of £118 million. But the monetary aspect was secondary. Oakridge had been a retreat for Queen Elizabeth II, a place for reflection on familial tensions, a space for strategic decision-making. For Prince William, it was the setting for his early summers, the place where he first grasped the weight of his future role. The legal structure behind Oakridge was exceptional. A clause entitled Anticipatory Obstruction barred any challenge by individuals who were not part of the direct Windsor bloodline or who had married into the family after 2010. This wording was precise, legally unassailable, and unambiguous. When this passage was read aloud in the Green Drawing Room, insiders say there was complete silence. For Camilla, this meant a definitive deadlock. Tom Parker Bowes is said to have re-examined his legal options, including a possible argument using public restoration funds. But Prince William had already ordered a forensic review of all restoration and security expenditures since 1953. Every potential weakness had been systematically eliminated. Princess Anne once again played a pivotal role. Her level-headedness and focus on institutional stability strengthened Prince William's position. King Charles, for his part, avoided open confrontation but made it clear internally that the integrity of his mother's will could not be questioned. While legal reviews were underway, Prince William once again opted for a symbolic strategy. Accompanied by Princess Catherine, George and Charlotte, he visited Oakridge as the official administrators. No dramatic statements, no public confrontation, just images of a family embracing a historic legacy. To observers, this was more than a gesture. It was a visual signal of continuity. Shortly afterward, Prince William received another document, a letter from Sir Jonathan Arberfield, Queen Elizabeth's personal solicitor. It contained a final passage in which she defined Oakridge as the possession of patience, destined for the one who would bear the burden of the future, not the weight of the claim. With Oakridge, the legal network was complete. Cedar Estate, North Acer Hall, Clarence Hill, Grione Downs, Greenheath Estate. Each property was strategically secured, every possible commercial loophole closed. For Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles, this represented a clear boundary. The vision of a more commercialized, brand-driven use of royal properties was effectively blocked. The conflict between tradition and economic modernization had reached a clear conclusion. But beyond all the legal details, a larger question remains. Why did Queen Elizabeth II deem such comprehensive safeguards necessary? Was it a reaction to the turbulent years with Prince Harry, or a forward-looking strategy to protect the monarchy from internal conflicts of interest? Oakridge was more than a transfer of property. It was the final word of a monarch who had dedicated her entire life to serving an institution she wished to protect from instability. With the signing of the final documents, it was clear. The strategic direction was unequivocally in favor of Prince William. He inherited not only land, but also responsibility and a legal structure that made his position virtually unassailable. But is this consolidation truly the foundation for long-term stability, or does it risk further deepening existing tensions in secret? The stage has been redrawn, the assets are secured, but the dynamics within the royal family remain a delicate matter. And thus, the crucial question arises: will Prince William merely preserve this legacy, or will he one day redefine it himself? Was all this merely a series of legal transfers, or the greatest strategic move in the modern history of the monarchy? With Oakridge Estate, the network of trusts, codes, and protective clauses seemed complete. But only in its entirety does the true legacy of Queen Elizabeth II become clear. She didn't simply bequeath land. She created a system. Cedar Estate, North Acer Hall, Clarence Hill, Grione Downs, Greenheath Estate, and Oakridge. Each property was legally isolated, specifically protected, and unequivocally assigned to Prince William. No gray areas, no shared administration, no tacit partnerships. The structure was meticulously, almost mathematically, planned. Observers who analyzed the documents speak of extraordinary foresight. The clauses covered potential attacks, commercial repurposing, reclassification as public heritage, recourse to public funds, even subsequent doubts about the signatory's mental capacity. Everything was anticipated. This legal architecture raises an uncomfortable question. Why was such protection even necessary? The past few years had repeatedly shaken the monarchy. The controversies surrounding Prince Andrew, Prince Harry's international media projects, the economic ambitions of certain individuals. All of this had demonstrated how drastically traditional institutions can change under the pressure of modernization. Queen Elizabeth II seemed to have drawn a conclusion. Not all modernization serves stability. Prince William embodied a different model in this context. While others considered brand partnerships and new revenue streams, he, as internal reports about Cedar Estate reveal, focused on archival work, sorting letters, overseeing technical maintenance. No cameras, no public applause. It was precisely this quiet approach that seems to have convinced Queen Elizabeth II. Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles, on the other hand, represented a vision that placed greater emphasis on economic exploitation. Their plans, from Royal Wild to Hill and Crown Limited and Stack Crown Hospitality Limited, reflected a modern understanding of aristocratic branding, sustainability, exclusivity, international investors. For some observers, this would have been a realistic way to make the monarchy more financially independent. But the Queen decided otherwise. King Charles adopted a more reserved role during this period. He did not intervene publicly, but set clear boundaries internally. Princess and acted as a level-headed figure of stability. Princess Catherine, in turn, was increasingly perceived as a moral co-steward, particularly through her involvement in Greenheath Estate and the educational and environmental initiatives planned there. George and Charlotte appeared in the symbolic visits to the properties, images of a new generation growing into this responsibility. With the final transfer, the question of power within the ownership structure was settled. Prince William was positioned not only as the future monarch, but also as the exclusive steward of key historical resources. The theory is compelling. Queen Elizabeth II wanted to prevent 7 centuries of history from being transformed into a hospitality brand. She wanted to draw a clear line between preservation and exploitation. But in the long term, another question arises. Is complete isolation from economic use sustainable, or will Prince William be forced to develop new models in a changing world without jeopardizing the substance? His actions to date suggest continuity. Keine öffentlichen Konfrontation, keine aggressiven Statements, stattdessen Unterschriften, Trustgründen, still Besuch. Ließ die juristische Struktur für sich sprechen. Camilla Hingegen muss erkennen, das selbstpolitisches Gestik und die wirtschaftliche Netzwerk gegen Praxis formuliert Testament Klauseln machtlos sind. Tom Parker Bowes zog sich sichtbar zurück. Sir Piers Mallory und Maurice Lullo verschwanden aus dem Rampenlicht. Das Bild, das am Ende bleibt, ist eindeutig. Queen Elizabeth II hat nicht nur ihren Enkel geschützt, sie hat die institutionelle DNA der Monarchie verteidigt gegen äußeren Druck und gegen interne Ambitionen. Doch ist dieser Konflikt wirklich bindet oder wird lediglich auf ein neue Bein verschoben. Prinz William steht nun im Zentrum eines Systems, das ihm maximal Kontrolle, aber auch maximal Verantwortung übertragt. Jeder Schritt, jede Entscheidung wird künftig als Fortsetzung oder Abweichung vom Vermächtnis von Queen Elizabeth II interpretiert werden. Warriors ein perfekter letzter Schachzug oder ein strategischer Rahmen, der zukünftige Spannungen erwirtagt. Die Geschichte dieser Anweisen ist abgeschlossen. Die Geschichte ihrer Verwaltung beginnt erst. Wie bewerten Sie diesen juristischen Krafttakt von Queen Elizabeth II war? Es notwendiger Schutz oder Übertriebene Absicherung und die Word Prinz William die Linie seiner Großmutter konsequent weiterführen. Diskutieren CMIT, den Diocese Capital mag geschlossen sein, doch die langfristigen Folgen werden die Monarchie noch prägen. 3. Februar 2026 offenbart ein unscheinbar Mittelung die strategisch tief der letzten Vermächtnisses von Queen Elizabeth II. In einem komplexen Netz aus Covenant Trusts und die Codes übertrug sie Cedar Estate, North Acer Hall, Clarence Hill, Greystone Downs, Greenheath Estate und die Oak Ridge exclusive an Prince William. Jede potenziell kommerzielle Nutzung wird juristisch blockiert, jede mögliche Anfechtung vorweggenommen. Camilla und Tom Parker Bowes hatten Konzept entwickelt, die auf wirtschaftlich Öffnung und die internationale Investoren setzten. Doch ihr Initiativen scheiterten an Praxis formulierten Klausel. King Charles unterstützt die Integrität des Testaments. Prinzess und agiert als Stabilität sanker. Prinzess Theorien wird zur Mittragerin der neuen Verantwortung. Queen Elizabeth hinterließ kein loses Erbe. Sondern ein abgesichert System. Prinz William ist nun alleiniger Verwalter zentraler historischer Ressourcen, nicht nur als künftiger Monarch, sondern als Hüter einer moralischen Linie. Ob dies Abschottung langfristig Stabilität oder neue Spannungen bringt, bleibt offen. Sicher ist jedoch, der strategisch Zug der Queen war kein Zufall, sondern das Ergebnis jahrzehntealanger Beobachtung und die Vorbereitung. Die Besitzfrage ist entschieden.